customer, whatever, something downstairs. Can someone just explain what that is and what's it for? Thank you.
Well, okay, I can take that one before we look at page 81. That's an evolving project at this point in time. It's been a political priority to have more face-to-face contact down on the ground floor. That is being explored as a project to go forward, and the allocation there is to provide that funding to support that.
Is that just to explore it or to actually implement it? Sorry.
It's an evolving project, and that money is there to provide the funds for whatever's needed to implement that. We don't know what that is going to be shaped like exactly at the minute, but it's an estimate of an element of 3 posts possibly to provide that service, but it could change.
Okay, thank you.
Right. In respect to page 81, so and it's looking at those growth items that are in special projects. These multicoloured pages, these multicoloured are right.
Different shades.
Oh, okay. This is Councillor Graves' idea to have these pages, because when I first started, he said we need to have it cost centre by cost centre, and that's what we've got. So that's what we've got here, and yes, it was the right thing to do. But if I could refer you to page 93. These are the detailed changes that are summarised in page 81. Okay, so these are actually, whoops, we're not ending the meeting yet. These are actually the propositions that are listed there in detail. Okay, so I think one of your questions was around the feasibility items, which is sort of towards the under strategic planning, towards the bottom.
Yes, it is.
Yep. So we've had via UK SPF funding. What I understand is there have been about six or seven feasibility studies undertaken in respect of housing growth, and these feasibility studies will, when they are finalised, will have certain recommendations on how to support those communities, and this is an allocation and we need to help with that implementation.
Okay. Are we going to get a list of, is there a list of where these communities are?
There's the list of the feasibility studies. I haven't got that to hand, but I can
It could be circulated to members.
Yeah,
that'd be great.
Circulated to members.
Thank you.
And was there anything else you mentioned on there? You mentioned about CCTV.
Yes, it says there's a 200k marker.
Yeah.
So moving CCTV. I'm just grateful if you could just, if we could add a bit more detail to that.
Yeah.
What's actually involved in that?
Yeah. So I can't really add much more detail other than the CCTV service is being reviewed, and there is the potential for that service to move to another provider. They provide this service that we've got, but it'll be provided by somebody else, and we will have to pay towards that transition. So this is an allocation of money to finance that transition.
Okay, thank you.
Well, I come back to Councillor Scott. Clive has got an answer to the missing 1 million. I believe. Was it a missing 1 million?
Missing 1 million.
1.2. No, it was just hiding then.
Definitely not missing. So, but me being me, I've done a very, very quick reconciliation of it. So, if I can refer you to Appendix 2 again, page 64. Yep. If you look in the first column under current year, you will see a figure of 3,285,952. Okay, that is the approved budget for non-service and strategic in 25-26. Okay. If I can then refer you to, I know this is jumping around a bit, so please bear with, to page 83. Yeah. And you see the base budget column there, which totals 4.2 million. Yeah. And can you see those grey blocks in front of it? Those grey blocks add up to 943,000. So add that with the 3285, you do get the 4.229335. Your question is, what are those grey blocks?
Previous years.
They are amounts that have been agreed in previous year's budgets applicable to 26-27, which I have to bring in because council has already approved whatever that was. So that's how I end up to the 4.229 million. And then, of course, I add in the payroll changes of 702, and I take off the environment of 1.9 million, almost 2, and I end up with the balance of 2.956 million. Thank you.
Feels like an episode of Countdown. Councillor Scott.
Going back to Councillor King's, you answered regarding the feasibility studies for housing growth areas, 6 areas. Was that? Can I ask Councillor Knowles? Was that? Is this? We're talking about the community master plans that you were coming up with. Are they different?
No, I think it's wider than that. And I think the best thing we can do is, as the officers have said, we will get that out to everybody. Would have been better for you to have it before the meeting tonight. But obviously these things are so wide and we are in the consultation. So I'll make sure you do get that.
Well, we are talking about, sorry, we are talking about the same thing.
No, I think it's wider than that. Clive, you've got the full detail. It is the same, but I think there's some extras on the end of it, isn't there, John? I haven't got the document in front of me.
Some of these.
Yeah, I think the UK SPF funded master plans are the ones that Councillor Scott's referring to.
They're in there, yes, please.
Okay. And some of these plans could have been provided actually to the administration as a straight out of the box plan almost. Why is the feasibility? Why is some of them need a feasibility study of this amount of money to actually look at where that money should be spent? I'm talking about my own ward again, which I generally do. And in a meeting we had with you, you were actually given almost an out of the box suggestion of how you could help a particular area, because it is going to be a housing growth area. Everyone knows. Last night's meeting indicated that 4,000 houses might still be being built in south of Gartree Road. So it definitely is a growth area, but I believe it was given to you almost as an out of the box suggestion. So why the feasibility study?
I, Chairman, through you, I can't answer at the moment. I haven't got the documentation in front of me, but I will look at it and come back to you.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Taylor.
It's just a really quick practical thing. I've got terrible eyesight and I find numbers quite hard, but when there are things like that, well, actually maybe for all scrutiny things, is it possible to use the, I don't know what to call that, big TV? Big screen. And maybe get a little pointer or something, because I find it hard to read it, but whether we can put the PowerPoint or put all of this on the big screen.
Yes, I get a visualiser.
Through you, Chair, I will endeavour to do better next time, Councillor Taylor. Yes, I will. I'll take that forward.
Just in the age of very vocals now.
Can you add that to the budget?
Yeah.
Councillor Graves, do you mind if I come to Councillor Austin first and then come back to you? Thank you.
Sorry, Chair, thank you. Just a matter of clarification, really, because I'm a little bit confused by your answer to Councillor King about the enhanced services on the ground floor and how that equates to a figure when you can't tell me exactly what it is that you're meant to be enhancing. I don't see how you get a figure from that.
Okay, so we have to remember that this is a budget, and these are proposals. And sometimes when you're producing a budget, you have a definitive plan and you know exactly what the number is. Sometimes you don't. Sometimes there's an aspiration of this is a political direction I'd like to go, or a service direction would like to go, and we have to come up with a best idea of what the cost could be. Okay, so when I produced this one, when this idea came forward, I talk to people and come up with, to provide this, roughly how much would it cost? How many staff? So for this one, I said 3 staff, this grade, blah, 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 and came up with that number. Okay. That number may not be enough, but that in the end, there will be a business case that will support it. Or it may be too much, but it's a budget. And I have to, you would write, it feels a bit finger in the air, but it's a little bit more scientific than finger in the air, if that makes sense.
No, it does. Thank you. The important bit for me is when you said 3 staff, because then I instantly can say, well, okay, if you're going to pay somebody 25, 30,000 a year, there's 90,000. You've got to allow a little bit more for bits and pieces. I understand that. What I couldn't get was, well, we've had a few ideas and we've come up with 115,000. And that's just, I can give you a few ideas and make a bit of money on that if that's the case. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll come to Councillor Graves.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for some of the answers to questions before about the environmental climate change portfolio, really around the environmental and waste contract. Can I just zoom out now and ask an overall question about the overall cost of our environmental and waste contracts? Now, I don't know if this involves parks and maintenance. I think the main issue is curbside collections, food waste, etc. Obviously, I mean, I was personally involved with a decision coming to Cabinet and Council for the purchase of £6.2 million worth of capital vehicles, bin lorries, basically. So we have our own fleet and we don't rely on the ageing ones that are gradually being decommissioned by the current contractor. But looking at the budget on page 64, that portfolio has been the environmental and climate change. Okay, it went up from 4 to nearly 4.5 million forecast outcomes. There's some extra costs there. 4.5 million in 3 years, that doubles to £9 million. There's an extra £4.5 million of cost. Now, without directing members to certain pages, because you've seen the figures already, we've already seen the figure of a 1.477 million increase, and apparently it's described as a contract award increase, and then there's £500,000 contract inflation. But then if you look at the food waste beginning, there's 5 months in the first year and then a whole year, and the next year it's £1 million. We obviously looked at the £6 million of capital cost to try to stabilise, reduce even the cost of our environmental waste contract over time by bringing capital costs in-house, so we don't have to pay profit margins, etc., to a provider. But having this portfolio double from 4.5 million to 9 million, I'm really concerned about that. That might be one of the biggest figures of this whole evening. I know that the breakdown is there, and Section 151 also has alluded to various aspects of that breakdown. Certain things are new, food waste. That is about 1.2 million a year. So if you add on 1.2 million from the 4.5, you get to 5.7, and it gets to nowhere near 9. So have we got an incredible cost increase being budgeted for the new waste contract, or are there other things happening? But I'm quite alarmed by that. But what I'm seeing, I have to zoom out and look at the whole thing, but that's incredible. Thank you.
Through you, Chair. We don't take it off. Sorry, apologise. Yeah, we don't know what the cost of the new contract is going to be. We have no idea, and so there is the annual cost for the food waste in there. We have included inflation that's in there, and we don't get to know that amount till later on this month or maybe February, and we are anticipating a number pushing 5.5–6%. But as I have done in previous years, I have also included an estimate which I've called, it's a provisional sum. to protect the authority if the costs are more than what we expect. Now, that is in future years and it protects us going forward. It is an estimate. It is a budget. It can change. If when the contract values come in the summer and they're better than that, fantastic. You know, that's good news. I have to be prudent with this, but it's for future years. I go back to it's very much similar to the way I've been prudent, and members have rightly challenged me in the past around the financial settlement that, you know, we could have had new homes bonus in the base every year, but we didn't know it was going to be there. And luckily we only ever included it in the year that we knew it was definitely going to be, which has allowed us when the settlement has landed, our number this year for 26-27 is actually better than what we had in last year's number for 26-27. And that's the same approach for this contract. We don't know. So I've been prudent in putting in numbers that hopefully don't come, but the whole point of the MTFS is to give members potential vision and the potential direction of travel in the most prudent way possible. And that's why the numbers are like they are. I hope it doesn't happen, but there we go.
Thank you. Councillor King.
Yeah, thank you. I just want to follow up on this customer service issue, which has been mentioned now. So look, I think historically we all know, well, those of us who've been on the council a long time, know that historically the council had a strategy to move towards phone and online contact for residents, for service users. And what we saw over a number of years is the number of people coming in the front door to speak to members of staff and to do, because obviously we stopped people being able to do cash and check transactions. So because the numbers were so low that they actually, it was costing the council an awful lot of money to maintain that service. So we went through that transformation process some years ago, and we made a decision, as hard as it was, after the pandemic, because obviously customer services had to close downstairs, and the decision was then made not to reopen it. And we've done that for a number of years. And what I'm curious about is what the rationale is for this. And I know the administration has a political objective and it didn't agree with that. I thought that it should stay open. But as far as I'm aware, the numbers of people requesting appointments, and I haven't seen anything to justify, you know, certainly spending this sort of money on having a permanent staffing in the still existing customer service area, because there are all sorts of on costs with that as well, which aren't mentioned here. So I'm just wondering, is there any ability to get us the latest performance data in terms of customer contacts, how many people are actually coming through the front door, over the, you know, because that would be the only reason this would be justified, to spend this sort of money and invest in yet more staff, which I'll help Councillor Austin out. The on costs of any salary are 35, 40, nearly 40%. So if someone's on a salary of, for the sake of argument, 35,000, which would be, you know, that or 40, then you've got to add another 35% on top. I think that's still right. I may have got that wrong, because there's the pension costs, national insurance, etc. I think it's a bit more than that, might be nearly 45%, I think. And I think, you know, it is expensive to hire people, and that's why. So I just wonder if those costs actually include all the on costs as well, Clive, when you're talking about hiring staff, or the costs that are in the budget, including all the on costs. And Chairman, I do apologise, but I should have mentioned earlier that I'm Chairman of the Leicestershire Local Government Pension Scheme, because it is in the report, and I've just talked about pensions, and so very tangentially, so I should mention it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for pointing that. I'll pass over to Clive.
Okay, so yeah, so it'll be a pilot first. Okay. And of course, pilots will be reviewed, as they always are. But as well as the political wish to have more face-to-face contact and supporting our community that way, this is a fantastic building. Okay, and there's a desire for this building to be potentially a new headquarters for any new subsequent local authority. And most of our other colleagues in other headquarter buildings do have some form of expanded customer centre. This will pave the way to establish that, because it will be good for the Sarminter building to remain as a civic centre, and with aspirations to be the headquarters of whatever new authority follows. And I'm sure you feel the same. So, as I say, it's a pilot first, hopefully leading into something else. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for that clarification. Thank you. But we get the figures for the contacts, the phone and people who are currently coming in face to face.
The performance data.
Performance data. Is that possible? We can get sent that? Thank you.
Through you, yeah. I think some of that is already on Pentana, if I'm honest, because I think that's pretty. Because I vaguely remember Councillor Dan
I'm just going to say this very quickly. Yeah, if you can find it, you're doing well. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much. Has anybody got any more questions? Councillor James.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, everyone, for allowing me to sit in here by the microphone. And it's been an interesting debate, and I'm not making any comment about the debate. It's been very interesting. But I just wanted to make a couple of points, actually. And these points come about because on my travels as the chairman of the council, I meet lots of people, listen to lots of people. And one of them is that relates to the green waste collection. If I could mention that. We've not touched on that much this evening. But there's an issue there of climate change, and people do start gardening in February, and people tidying gardens in November now. And there is quite a groundswell of opinion that we should widen the timescale for this. Now, I guess we can't do it now this year, but it's something I think I'd like to go into the system to look at, because there are many, many people who it's a very good service, it's a well-used service, and many people have said to me, we would like it extended. So that's that comment, please, if you could take that on board in some way or other. And the only other one I'll just say is that about a week ago, I was cornered by a group of people, and they were saying to me, what are you doing about the council tax? And I said, well, there's a number of options being discussed at the moment. And they said to me, well, you know exactly what you've got to do. What do you mean? Said, you've got to reduce it. Look at all these houses you're building and all the money you're getting in from the new house building. It's just, I just throw it as a comment. Of course, it's much more complex than that, and the Director of Finance did spend some time with me going through the calculations. And we are the collecting authority, and we don't keep all the money we collect. But I just wanted to throw those two comments in from the residents, really, that have spoken to me over the last few weeks. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor James. Okay, so if we've come to the end of the questions, obviously our remit tonight is that we should provide recommendations to pass back to Cabinet. Now, obviously, we're fortunate in that we've got two Cabinet members with us this evening. But if anybody has any recommendations they would like to highlight that we should make, obviously, we would then look to put that to the group and see if that would pass through to Cabinet. So, Councillor Graves.
Yeah, it's a suggestion, and it's really throwing it out to the committee to see what you think as well. I'm aware of the Broughton Astley 250,000. My current view is that that's not enough to make up for the very large sums really relating to Market Harbour. Now, I could add to that the 3 and a bit million on the couple of very large purchases resulting in the rewilding proposal. Now, I know that has ramifications further out than Market Harbour, but you don't get many people from 35 minutes drive away sort of making a beeline for that, and you won't for many years. Coupled with the cinema idea, coupled with what was the third? There's a third item I mentioned, wasn't there? That was the pavilion, 350k. I do remain concerned because there were previous arguments made at this council. I've been here nearly 19 years now, and I have heard the fair funding arguments come and go. And I do remain concerned that there's going to be an uptick in concerns over fair funding. Now, I fully understand the Section 151 officers' technical points about the current special expenses policy. I get that. So I get that 1, 2, 3 new things, they're clearly not mentioned by policy. But if you look at it from a layman's point of view, they're either just in the town or maybe just outside. It is the town. So I don't know whether that means there maybe should be a recommendation to look at this funding. I still get the feeling that this £1 million, this extra million, Market Harbour, Lutterworth, Broughton Astley and Fleckney. I mean, it's obviously 250k for Market Harbour and Lutterworth. And then Fleckney, I mean, Kibworth isn't included in that. And Great Glen isn't included in that. A couple of members here shaking their heads, looking a bit disappointed. But I do remain concerned that the arguments for fair funding might erupt again. And I would please, I'm looking at the portfolio holder, could I please encourage you to see whether you can mitigate the effects of significant Market Harbour based funding. I mean, I'm not including anything through the Symington building. I've not mentioned the Market Hall. I've not even mentioned the toilets, although as Councillor King said that there is maybe an argument for them to be in special expenses, maybe not. It's a facility that Broughton Astley doesn't have anymore. Anyway, I've made my point. I do remain concerned about the funding issues and policy. These appear to be multiple things that have just gone outside current policy. Thank you.
So to summarise, really, it would be to consider a fairer distribution of capital expenditure across the district and not so localised within Harbour.
Yeah.
Yes, I mean, the point has been made, for example, that in 1-2 years' time, a number of these assets might suddenly be gifted or transferred, give it whatever word you use, environment transferred to a town council. And it might be that the assets transferred and we're left with the debt through the general fund. Although I'm hoping the Section 151 officer might say the debt would be transferred as well, but that wouldn't be so good on the people receiving the debt. But you get the drift, which is you know, we can't be left with an asset and the debt. The debt would surely have to go with the asset. So we, as an authority, we may not want to load up a new town council with that £500,000 debt for a cinema, with a 300,000 debt for a rewilding project. You know, if we give them 800,000 of debt straight away, well, it's like one of those horrible company buyouts, isn't it? Where suddenly you find out they've got 4 billion of debt dumped on them like a Thames Water. And I physically have been in a group accounting office at the top of the skyscraper for Thames Water, so I can imagine what it's like. Anyway, I'm rambling a bit, but yeah, I think this might need to go offline at some point because I think there's some big issues that might be coming from it.
Sorry, Clive, did you want to?
Yeah. First of all, there isn't debt. The debt we have with the PWLB is very old debt, and that has nothing to do with this. The projects that are in the capital programme will be financed by capital financing, which is, as I mentioned to Councillor Austin, it's the example of it's split over the economic life, and it would be up to the new authority whether it, as part of its special expenses policy, there's no guarantee that the new authority would actually have a special expenses policy. They may actually decide we're not having special expenses, we're not doing it, and it would die on the 31st of March 2028. but that financing would still continue. If I was the 151 of that new authority and the policy and they chose that special expenses would continue, that capital financing element would still remain. And if they broadened the policy and included other assets, that would then be a trip to that special expenses, but they may not. So we don't know what's going to happen in 2 years' time. It's definitely not that.
Thank you for the clarification. So in terms of Councillor Graves' recommendation, how many members would support such a recommendation to look at the capital expenditure being of a fairer funding? Just a quick show of hands just to gauge. Yeah, I think we have consensus there. Okay, thank you, Councillor Graves. Any other members have any suggestions for recommendations that they would like to see put forward to Cabinet? Councillor King, sorry.
Yeah, I think obviously there's been various requests for clarification and further information. So believers are committed to that being provided. And so what I'd hope is that it's not really a recommendation, but it's a request that that information is supplied in good time before the final cabinet budget meeting, so we can actually see the information that some of these proposals are actually justified on. I mean, obviously, you know, I know there's a lot of internal briefings and whatnot that go on. Just one point I wanted to pick up about the cinema. We did look at it when I was leader, and it just wasn't viable. And the different providers at the time and came and talked to us, and lots of business cases were drawn up. It didn't work, and we were going to have to pay an awful lot of money you couldn't justify it. So I just think there may be other items we think about as well, but I just think immediately that is an item which I really don't think I don't really think you've got time to deliver it anyway. And I think you're going to need a lot more than £500,000 to deliver a cinema. And I just think it's a wish thing, and it sounds nice, but actually, can you really do it? I don't think so. And I think you should just bin that off, to be quite honest. I mean, there are probably other things the group may come back with later, but at the moment, that's the one thing I do think, based on my experience when I was leader, it's just not viable. And it was looked into. We spent a lot of money on that as well, and it just doesn't work. So that's what I wanted to say. So that would be my recommendation. That is the cabinet think again about that. Thank you.
Sorry, Leah, did you want to come in on that?
This one is a really tricky technical point. So it will be the role of council in a few weeks to set the budget, and you can decide how much money you put into specific services through the budget. It is then down to cabinet how they choose to use that budget to run services. So you as committees can evaluate and scrutinise and challenge, but you cannot use the budget to direct how council delivers services. They have to do it within the budgetary envelope.
Yeah, I wasn't telling them how to spend it. I'm just saying that they need to have another look at it.
Thank you. So I think to summarise, your recommendation will be to look at certain expenditures.
If I may, Chair, in light of the comments that have been made and the discussion that we've had of different things, that the cabinet evaluates those and whatever it draws its conclusions and makes necessary changes, because there are, I think, some good points that have been made by us, genuinely about the budget, and I think they should be taken on board if the administration is truly committed to what it says it is. Thank you.
Thank you. So, yeah, I mean, generally, and I think we would all be in agreement to take on board the comments that have been raised tonight in various aspects, as well as getting that documentation as well for you later. Councillor Knowles, would you like to come back on that?
There we go, working. Thank you, Chairman. I mean, simply put, this is a consultation stage, and that's absolutely the reason we're here, to listen to what Scrutiny have had to say. And I think we, you know, the last time we came to Scrutiny, one of the things that was mentioned was about the special expenses, etc. And, you know, we picked up on that, and quite right to do so. And I think, you know, obviously the points that have been raised tonight, the Cabinet will look at them. You know, to do otherwise would just be ridiculous. You know, this is part of an overall policy for the council, and it's part of the way that things are structured that we come to the council. We listen to what the Scrutiny are saying. We'll listen to what the public are saying, and then come up with a balance to bring back to full council. And I think that's the important thing. So I think it's well evidenced that we're taking on board what's being said. We're listening, and then we'll come up with a package. I think it's just important to say that, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Knowles. Fortunately, I've got Leah beside me, who has quite succinctly put together a recommendation based on Councillor King and a few other comments that have been made tonight, that a recommendation would be that Cabinet reconsiders growth proposals and whether they should be committed to as proposed, especially in respect of customer service centre and potentially other developments. Would members be in agreement of that recommendation to be put forward? Yeah, we have agreement. Thank you. Councillor Taylor, I think you had your hand up.
Yeah, I was just thinking about in terms of some suggestions for the points that Councillor Scott and I raised. I think Councillor Scott, you suggested about feasibility study. I was also thinking about whether we could utilise the new climate impact officer, and whether I don't fully understand their role yet, because it's quite a new one, but whether they can also be in contact with any other councils across the country in terms of what other councils are doing. I think Gloucester are doing some things. I've just been looking at that tonight, but so I appreciate the welcome of ideas, and certainly myself and my Green colleagues can look into that, but I wondered if the impact officer could also have a role in helping with that.
Yes, so again, Leah, amazingly beside me, is putting that into a recommendation. So the recommendation around that area would be that council should continue to explore the potential for climate change mitigation and how this can be funded through budget. I think in addition to that, also it will be looking at ways in which council could use expenditure to look at the effects of climate change and averting it in areas like Great Glen as well.
I think the prediction model and then the prediction prevention, rather than just the sandbags, actually when it's coming, looking at the heat rainfalls, which is what the local flood community is already doing. So again, there's a huge base of knowledge within the community, but whether that could be linked up. Anyway, I think there's going to be some more work around it. But
Thank you. Councillor Scott, do you want to come in on that?
Just adding to it, really, I think modelling is apparently the way forward. Finding out what the root causes are, and looking to alleviate those and to eradicate it if we can. So that's exactly what.
Yeah, I mean it's also pertinent to myself and Councillor James's ward as well, where we've had significant flooding. Okay, would members be in support of a recommendation for that? Just quick hands in the air. Yeah, I think that's unanimous. And Councillor Graves.
This relates to the previous meeting, and I know that there was I think Councillor King, you mentioned this. Special expenses has been mentioned a lot tonight, and the previous meeting, so only maybe half or less of the room was at the previous meeting. When council tax bills comes out, there's going to be an almighty change in some of the figures. When I say almighty, it's bigger than we've ever seen before, and more than I can remember in 20 odd years. So, for example, the Fleckney special expenses are going to increase by 4,330%. Now, albeit that's because they're going up from 20 pence to £8.12 or something. So it's a very, very small part of the budget, but there's an enormous percentage. Market Harbour special expenses go up by 30-40%, or actually a similar, double figures. There were one or two comments last time where there was a bit of a discussion of should we get internal audit to check why for 7 years they haven't been accurately applied in the budget behind the scenes. No councillor is obviously responsible for if things aren't being calculated on spreadsheets properly or spreadsheets being changed. But I don't know whether that was a formal recommendation from the last meeting. If it wasn't made at the last meeting, I wonder if members would support this recommendation now for some appropriate internal audit review. And if you think about it, the wider implication of this is that if one policy has been identified as not being accurately followed for 7 years, how do we as members know that there might be other policies not being accurately implemented, not necessarily in figures, but in other areas of council life? So it widens out to a general point. So I don't know whether that was agreed at the last meeting, Chair. You might know.
Yeah, so it wasn't a recommendation because I believe the instruction for an audit would come from audits and standards, not from the scrutiny, which would be my understanding.
We could make it a recommendation to request one. I mean, we're not necessarily able to force it through, but we could still ask for it.
But I think at the time, I think that's where the discussion kind of petered out. So I'll pass over to Clive though.
Okay, I think there was a discussion back in November, was it? December? December. But I don't know what a review would do. First of all, anybody in finance is no longer here. They're not here. The records I have looked at have followed the same pattern since before my time. And I can only tell you honestly what I've seen. It will be in the dim and distant past. I have I have ideas why, but that would be completely wrong of me to put that out there. But I have seen nothing other than that the same approach has just been followed year on year on year. I don't believe it was a deliberate action. I don't believe it was anything that officers have done or not done. From the modelling I have seen, year on year on year has been the same approach, and that's all I can say. I don't think you'll get any value from such a review. I've looked at it myself, as you probably all know. There was a budget item last year for 60 grand, somebody to come and do this review. We didn't get anybody in the procurement, and I have done it to myself. So I've had to unpick and look back, and it goes back to about 2019, and the spreadsheets I've seen, it has just literally followed the same approach year on year. And I don't know who to look at because they're not here. They've long gone. That's just all I can possibly say. That's all I can say.
Thank you, Councillor.
Well, in that case, I would be more than happy to simply take a statement from the Chief Executive that all current policies are being fully implemented and we don't have to check. I'm not sure that's a statement he would want to agree to, that, but you see my point, which is we've discovered something that went wrong for 7 years, and if we don't, you see, businesses and senior officers obviously need to monitor how things are done, how things are carried out. That surely there's a check on adherence. It's a standard monitoring control. So it would definitely show that in this area, no one in the council checked whether it was still okay. And the implication strongly is that we're not checking whether other areas are also okay. Because if we didn't check one, we're not checking others. So my interest is much less in what happened on special expenses. It's more the 207 other policies we've got. I mean, I generally don't know how many there are. There could be 500, there could be 42. Good old Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. But we didn't know we were doing one, so therefore surely we don't really know if all the others are okay. I mean, if no other members are interested and want to go home, fine, but it was an important point raised at the last meeting, and I don't think we came to a resolution.
I think some of the background as well, a number of the members here probably won't be aware of because it was a corporate performance. I mean, I don't know if other members are up to speed on how it all came about, because I mean, you've given a quite a good summary. But I don't, would members be willing to recommend, make a recommendation on this being looked at? Sorry.
I, I think one of the difficulties here, I mean, we're here to scrutinise the budget, and obviously it was discussed extensively at the corporate performance scrutiny meeting in December, where this topic was covered at quite some length. We have assurance systems within the council. We have internal audit. We have external audit. We have the opinions and work of myself, Clive. We have ombudsmen, inspectors and things, and they do pick things up. I'm not going to pretend that they say everything's great and rosy and perfect all the time. They pick things up. They make recommendations. They are reported through to the Audit and Standards Committee to look at and examine. And they also have responsibility to check that we are undertaking the necessary action to put improvements in place. So no one can sit here and say today that everything is perfect in the council, but what we can say is where we do get things wrong, these do tend to get picked up through one mechanism or another, recommendations are made. And if the Audit and Standards Committee want us to do more audit work in looking at policies in the future, then they can look at that when we are looking at things like internal audit plans for the future.
Councillor Knowles.
Thank you, Chairman. Well, this is a difficult one because I think the bottom line is that we all want to know, be sure that everything is best practice. Now, it's not as if we're sitting here and saying, oh, well, 2016, this is Councillor Fred or Councillor Mary's fault. We don't know why this happened. And I think that's the difficult thing. I know it's something that Councillor Graves was adamant needed to be looked at. We've looked at it and this detail has come forward. But again, you've got this other nagging problem, whether we like it or not. We're rapidly approaching the buffers for this council. And the question is, how much time can we afford to dedicate to going in and making sure, we've been told by the monitoring officer that we are certain that anything that is being identified is being picked up. I've got total sympathy with what Mark Graves is saying on this, to be quite honest with you, about the thing that we really do want to check everything. But on the other side of the coin, I'm looking at it and saying, well, quite honestly, the difficulty is, how much time can we afford to spend on this? And what's going to be the benefit, unless it is something that is absolutely major? And that's the difficulty. If it's something that's major, I would hope that we would have identified it already. If it was something that had slipped through the system, and there was this 1 million or 2 million or 3 million that was somewhere that nobody could identify it, that would surely have been picked up. The problem we've got with this is it's absolutely justifiable to look at this and say 2016 through to now, that's 10 years. It's a long, long time. It's been identified, being picked up. We're actually doing something about putting it right now. But I'm just not sure, Chairman, and I'm absolutely prepared to listen to what other members have got to say on this. I'm not sure whether it's best use of time in the limited time that we've got left as an authority to actually spend officer time, member time doing this, or whether we're better off trying to deliver other things positively with assurance, certain knowledge that the monitoring officer has said that if anything is picked up, it will be identified and will be followed through. And if any member spots anything, then please let's hear about it. That's all I've got to say on it, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Knowles. So in light of Councillor Graves's recommendation, is there anybody who would support that being recommended to?
Chair, I'll withdraw it. I don't think there's the support for it.
Does anybody have any other recommendations? No. Okay. Thank you very much. I think that draws to an end this evening's meeting. I don't have any urgent business other than to say to Councillor Rickman, it's nice to see you back. I know you've not been here for a while, so it is good to see you, and thank you for coming tonight. But if there's nothing else, I will close this meeting. Thank you very much.